Good morning, guys. But I have some pretty sad news that we need to start with for today's podcast, which is we are going to be retiring not investment advice. But instead, we are going to be going with Ian. You came up with a name for this podcast?
Three comments.
Not trace, three commas.
Three comments.
So
I heard
it turns
comas.
out
I
that,
was like,
yeah,
We're in coma, so
what
three
are people in
commas.
comas?
So I don't know if anyone here has been in the audience has been a fan of Silicon Valley, the HBO show from over a decade ago. But there's a tres comas joke there representing the unicorn valuation $1 billion. And it turns out that every single podcast name has ever been taken except for this one. Well, actually, this one was kind of taken, but was retired earlier. It was interesting AI research that we've done. So from now on, we're going to rebrand ourselves as the Three Commas podcast. And you can guess that there's Kevin, Ian, and myself, each representing a comma in your unicorn journey for podcast listening. So, guys, I like the brand name. Ian, thank you so much for using your AI to do all the work.
yeah. Thank you to Entropic.
Yeah, we had some pretty shitty ideas as well that we batted around. So I'm happy about happy about this one. But speaking of podcasts, there's another podcast that, between the two of us generates over $30 million in revenue a year. And of course, I'm talking about the Three Commas podcast and our brothers over at TBPN that got acquired by OpenAI this week. A shocking move, I think, to see a relatively niche but highly popular tech podcast getting acquired by an AI giant. Ian, or actually, let's start with you, Kevin. Did you have any reaction to this when you saw this acquisition?
Yeah, well, the news came out yesterday, April 2nd, which is a day after April 1st.
Do that.
And as we all know, there are tons of April Fool's jokes coming out on April 1st by a lot of VCs and startups. And so I thought this was just like a late April Fool's joke. And I think a lot of people did as well, because I saw a bunch of comments from like when they announced the news on Instagram or somewhere else. It was like, is this an April Fool's joke? Because when did OpenAI get in the business of acquiring media companies? It's like it's a billionaire move. I know, like, Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post, and maybe it's a sign of the times that when you become a billionaire and you have a lot of money and a lot of capital, you start buying media companies. But yeah, it just seemed so off base when I saw the news that I thought it must be a joke. But then it seems like it was very much real. And so I think we all have the same take on this. So maybe I'll pass it off to Ian to talk about what our collective take is on this.
I think one thing that was interesting to me was the CEO last week told everybody, or the week before when they're shutting down Sora, they're not doing any side quest anymore. And they just did a new side quest, opened up the whole new can of worm. And I think the reason why they did was, I think Sam is not good at PR. Whenever he shows up on a podcast, he messes up. Like, I remember the podcast that he did with Brad Gerstner. And, hey, Brad, if you want to sell your shares, we can buy whatever. Like, he was very, I don't know, not very friendly to people. And I always find him not answering the questions directly. It was always a bad PR whenever he shows up on the media. So maybe they bought it for their own PR system, or try to have a more friendly media, because the information was the friendly media to OpenAI, but I think OpenAI is losing grip over the information to some extent, so they just need somebody else.
I think you're onto something, Ian, with that sentiment, because I read the TechCrunch article that you shared on the story, and it says that this team is going to be reporting to OpenAI's chief political operative, a guy named Chris Lehane. So the article keeps going on talking about Chris Lehane's background. I mean, this guy is actually a very deep politics insider and actually has the ear of Trump on certain policies. He runs a super PAC. Even though there are nice words that says, like, we're going to stay politically, or say independent of the news, they're going to have full editorial control. Isn't it strange to be reporting into a political propaganda head? I mean, like, there's no way that this can't have at least some soft influence. As
Yeah,
this,
so I see it as a more Aki hire. It's not they're buying the entire brand or anything. I don't think they're paying a lot. It's just hiring these TBPN guys to be the propaganda machine for OpenAI to some extent.
well, the on the price. I mean, I can't verify any of this, but on Twitter, I saw like Zero Hedge and a couple other groups kind of rumoring low hundreds of millions on this thing. I
That's a
mean,
pretty
that's
good price.
I have a hard time believing that number, but if it were true, then I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars. That's yeah, that's a pretty
That's
substantial.
ridiculous, though. Like hundred millions of dollars for a 63,000 subscriber YouTube channel. I don't know.
Probably,
that's what I'm
probably.
saying. I think that's what Eric's saying is if that is true, which I actually think that's probably the price, right? Like OpenAI has a lot of money, and they can also use stock to purchase, right? Which
Mm.
I mean, it depends on your view on OpenAI stock if it's overvalued at this point or not. But if you know you're the host, the founders of TBPN, and you think, hey, it's actually still worth, you know, this is one of the best AI companies in the world, and the stock's going to continue to be more valuable. Which I don't know. Maybe they don't. I don't know if they believe that because they know everything that's happening as well in the market, like other VCs as well, right? So, but it could be that's a pretty compelling price to sell to because I can't think of any other reason because I think Eric's right. Like you join OpenAI, like there's no way that there's not going to be some influence on what you're doing, and you're not part of like you're technically not really independent anymore. I mean, I don't know how long their lockup or like non-compete is for, or if they have an earnout, but I would imagine the second that that's done, like I would just get the hell out, start a new company, right? Because it
Or
doesn't
another
cost
podcast.
us. Yeah, it costs you literally nothing to just go and start, you know, whatever, ZBPN
Yeah.
and, you know, buy the equipment, the same stuff. Like, it's going to be super easy to start your own thing again, right?
I mean, for TBPN, this is a no-brainer deal, but I don't know about OpenAI. I mean,
Yeah. I think good luck to those guys. Pretty amazing year and a half journey that you've had. That takes a lot of skill to get that kind of outcome for media business like this in this day and age. Kevin, in the chats we had before this recording was like, we should probably signal to Anthropic that, the Three Commas podcast will entertain a $99 million acquisition, right? So if anyone from Anthropic is listening, look, we're open to the notion of selling out as well. Although we got our own funds, so I don't know if we could do that to our LPs. But let's talk about a different, very very different kind of story here, which is around this company called Medv. Ian, I'd love your help in introducing this story because this might be the first two-person unicorn, right? But there's some hair around this story.
yeah, so I think this is a big story that was published yesterday on New York Times. So the Medv, what they've been doing is they're two people company, founder and his brother running a not knockoff Ozempic, not real Ozempic, but more GLP-1 drugs, and using AI to market them, connect them with the suppliers and buyers. I think they're charging about $299 for a monthly subscription for this GLP drugs. They're they're supposed to do like they've done $400 million in revenue in 2025, and they're expecting to do 1.8 billion dollars this year, 2026. Yeah, people are claiming, or New York Times is claiming, this is the first one person, almost one person unicorn, using the AI.
So the digital advertising part is where it gets pretty hairy though, right? So accusations of AI generated slop,
Yeah,
right?
the way they started this thing is fake photos. The before and after photo of the customers were actually generated by AI. That was one accusation. I mean, I think they're not supposed to sell knockoff Ozempic now. I think when FDA declares there's shortage of GLP drugs, that you can actually sell something that's similar to GLP, but not actual GLP-1 drugs. So that's done. It ended in February, and they're still selling it. So I think that's a problem. The FDA sent a warning about them, and the revenue is unaudited. We don't know if it's actually true. They didn't get any investment. They're not. They don't have to, report this to anybody. So we don't know if this is a actually real number or not. So there are a lot of different accusations, and the founder's prior business had a warning about misleading the customers, and we think this is the same. And there's a lot of complaint about that you can't get the refund from this company, and all that kind of jazz. So I'm writing about this, but I don't know. If we trust this guy, and this guy actually is a $1.8 billion revenue company, then this might be the first AI single person unicorn.
It's
I mean,
crazy. Hmm.
yeah, Kevin, I want to get your take on this. And I'm right now actually looking at one of their fake ads where there's like misspellings on the Ozempic box and so forth. It's actually really sloppy looking content. Doesn't look like it's been editorially reviewed, but I'm curious about, you know, you do a little bit more later stage than us, Kevin. I'm now starting to realize that there's like a AI risk diligence that needs to be like added to our underwriting process here because so pre-seed, seed, whatever, like all of that's naturally unaudited. Like it's not like a third party is coming in to verify numbers, but with these kinds of tools, it feels like there are more ways that founders could theoretically trick investors. And I'm a little bit worried about the success of this Medv company. If they end up like getting away with it, isn't that a little bit of a blueprint of just like, yeah, we're brash, like we're kind of faking it. I'm not sure, what you've seen maybe in your SoftBank days or even now as you're running Mangusta. How are you thinking about like AI diligence as part of the process too?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's interesting because typically in later stage investing, we will hire outside vendors to do much more detailed due diligence, right? You typically hire a law firm to do legal compliance due diligence. You'll hire, a financial firm like one of the big four accounting firms to do like financial DD as well. You sometimes hire someone for cybersecurity risk. So you'll hire outside firms for some things like that. As you guys know, like once you go earlier stage, you don't really have to do much of that, right? You do mostly, uh, you do a couple founder meetings, you get to understand the business, they provide you with financials, but at the size of the investments and the stage of the company, it doesn't really make sense to pay tens of thousands of dollars to bring in an accounting firm to do a full study, right, on a company's financials. And that just wouldn't be possible as well if you're making, 100K, couple 100K investments and you're making, many, many of them every year, maybe even more than 100 investments a year. It's something that you can't really manage. But I think if someone were to look at investing in this company, if they're doing close to a billion or close to claiming that they're doing $1.8 billion of revenues and they're asking for, a unicorn plus valuation, I suspect a lot of those investing firms would actually, you know, commission a financial due diligence report and hire firms and do all that stuff because a lot of growth funds do have that requirement also to just like CYA, right? Like, cover your butt to make sure that you're not taking the liability or risk that you did something wrong. Like you can actually get the auditing or accounting firm to say, hey, there's a problem here, or it also shifts the responsibility to them where it's like you guys did an accounting due diligence and you didn't find these issues, like that's kind of now on you, you know. So anyways, it is very interesting to hear because obviously the Times should be a very reputable source, but it sounds like there is some other issues here that Ian and others have unveiled that maybe they should take a deeper look into.
Hmm. Maybe I'm thinking about the story the wrong way. The fact that they have not raised, right? And you said like they're largely a bootstrap this thing. Uh,
100%.
is yeah, then it's giving them maybe the permission to get away with this kind of stuff. I'm just thinking about like if I were a more bad actor than I am today, how I would sort of set up this business. Maybe I go to like Cyprus, right? A company or like some sort of country where it's really difficult to come after me. And then I just AI slap the shit out of these businesses as a really good marketing AI person. And yeah, like it's fast and loose, but I don't have any outside investors. It's really cheap to run this kind of thing. And I'm scaling up really, really quickly and just get my bag and get the hell out. I mean, like, I actually think we're going to see more of this kind of stuff. Like, I was really hoping that the first 1 or 2 person AI company would be, I guess, have a little bit more of like a magnanimous intent,
Hmm.
as a starting point. But if this is like how we're beginning, then it almost feels like the playbook for other kind of scammy, huge businesses in the future, and where they avoid VC, so they can avoid all the underwriting issues that Kevin's highlighting. So
Yeah. I
Well,
think
I
there's
mean,
kind of
one of
offer.
these companies.
but I mean, keep in mind, right? Like he's still got to exit this at some point, unless he wants to just keep running it and hopefully it's profitable and you just take dividends from it. At some point, if you want to exit, you're going to go through the same thing, the same issues of raising VC capital too. Like you're going to have to, if you want to IPO, you bet you're going to have to do audited financial statements and, everyone's going to want a due diligence report of everything. Or if you want to sell to another company, M&A, like gonna
Yeah.
go through the same thing, right? The only way that he can continue to make money, unless he wants to do a transaction, is just this better be profitable and you just collect, dividend checks.
Dude, that's what I would do. I would just pay myself like 100 million a year for as long as I can, and then just let the business sort of fizzle out, right? And that I think is life changing.
That's true.
Yeah.
uh,
I think I heard they're profitable. I don't know, margins about 10% after
okay.
everything. That's what he's claiming, but we don't know it's actually true. And the other thing is he's not going to be able to operate anymore because FDA is saying you shouldn't sell this
Yeah.
fake or not fake, but knockoff Ozempics anymore.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think he's over. That's why he's being on media. He's trying to do plan for his next gig.
He
Yeah.
already got ordered. He already like before the article came out, he already was kind of like told stop doing this.
Exactly. He was
Oh,
warned
okay.
in March. So
You know what this guy needs? He needs to acquire a podcast as a propaganda machine. And maybe the Three Commas podcast should be engaging. No, we would never sell this guy.
yeah. I actually met this guy in LA. He was on stage in one of sessions at the Upfront Summit, and a lot of VCs were saying the same thing. But I told him like this has got to be scam. Like
Yeah,
they're selling fake Ozempics on social media, and this is same as I don't know. There are hundreds of these companies,
there are.
and this guy's
Yeah.
trying to do something else out of this.
Yeah, fascinating. Let's switch gears to a very different kind of story, and I want to turn to our resident Google fanboy, talking about Ian, because he was telling us a little bit before we started recording about Gemma 4, which is the open source, excuse me, the open source AI model that Google just released. By the way, so I had no idea that Google is in the open source game as well, but this looks pretty impressive. Do you want to introduce what this story is all about?
Yeah, I think it's been around for a while. I've been following this, and Gemma 4 is supposed to be as good as Sonnet, Anthropic Sonnet
Wow,
4.6, which is
wow.
not as good as Opus, but still good enough.
Hmm.
So I think, I'm paying $200 per month to Anthropic to use Claude Max, and I've always been hoping to get some open source model. And I want those open source models to get smaller so it fits on my MacBook or Mac Mini or not even Mac Mini. It's okay with MacBook Pro. I'm happy to pay for that. So something that's more local. And I wrote something about this because I've been making my own softwares and Mac softwares, and I use them all the time. And I realized people will start building their own softwares going forward. There's nobody who's going to be using the exact same softwares um, with other people. So if you want to do that, I mean, if you actually do that, you don't have to care about securities or privacy or anything because you build on your own software. It stays in local. And these open source models in a compact size, I think they actually have a model, open source model that could be loaded on a phone, I think. So once we get there, then it's going to change everything.
Ian, I think you're painting a really neat future here. What you just described to me is a little bit like buying a tract home in in America. Let's say that like you're going to go to one of these like Toll Brothers neighborhoods or whatever, these McMansions, right? They actually have just like two or three or four set layouts of like this is what the home floor plan is going to be. But it's up to you if you want to like install your own granite countertops or paint the walls pink. Perhaps that's the future of software, right?
I
Which is
mean,
like, yeah,
go ahead, yeah.
no,
I've been
no one,
saying this is a stem cell, like stem cell software that you're gonna have locally, and you can turn it into whatever you want. And there's gonna be some harness. This is another buzzy word that everybody's using, harnessing the AI. So within that limit, AI can do anything. So I think just these open source models and smaller, lighter models are just the most exciting part of, I think, AI development for me.
Kevin, how does this business model work for Google, you think? Because they got, a lot of resources put into Gemini, right? And then they also are running this like open source thing on the side. It's hard for me to reconcile. Like, why would you put resources in both places like this?
I Google's always been one of these companies where I feel like they're just always going to experiment with a lot of different things and see kind of what sticks, right? Which I think is a very valuable characteristic for innovative companies that continue to adapt and thrive in a very rapidly changing world. They've always had I think it's called the X Labs, or
Yeah,
sorry,
the,
yeah,
like experimental skunkworks thing,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, so like that's where Waymo and I think Verily and many other kind of including I think Gemini also, and like Google Brain, like I think they came out of in some ways connected to like their experimental work, right? And so I think in general Google's just always been on the forefront of trying a lot of different things and seeing what ends up sticking. And I think it's a good business practice to just always have new ideas that you're working on. I think with this, I can only speculate. Maybe to some extent, they do have hardware products. They're building their own processor units. At some point, maybe they want to release and sell essentially like AI, hardware as well for people to build their own machines, right? And so maybe there's something there. It builds their ecosystem. Like they probably continue to want developers that will build on either open source or closed source models. So whether it's people want to build on Gemini or Gemma, it's just funny that I remember in the very beginning, people were like, open source versus closed source models, who's going to win? And I feel like it has very much become more, in my opinion, it seems to be more like closed source because everyone's building on Claude or GPT or something. But I think there will always still be folks who want to, load up their own machines and do their, I have a bunch of friends doing the same thing as Ian, and want to play with these things. And so open source is your way to go, right?
I think, I've been saying that the frontier models, the closed source models are stagnating in terms of, their performance gains. And once it reaches, it converges to a certain degree, open source will catch up. The thing is, I think open source is a problem for a lot of companies. I think it's going to be a problem from Google, big problem for Apple too. Like Apple just shut down an app called Anything. That is a vibe coding app that's on App Store. So you can actually create your own app on Anything app on your phone. So they just shut it down because that's going to kill the entire App Store ecosystem if people start building their own softwares or apps for their phone. So the problem there is though, even if Google and all these AI frontier companies stop making these open source models, DeepSeek will, and Quinn will, like China will. So
Mm,
to prevent letting them winning or gaining more grounds in the US and AI ecosystem, the Google and Meta and everybody should still keep building these open source models. So I think it's going to be getting there. And now I think the big thing that everybody has to figure out is what if people can have their own open source models on their local machines? How are we going to make money out of them?
Hmm.
yeah,
Sell
you know,
hardware.
yeah, I think so.
Well, I think it's also, I think hardware is conversion and also hardware windows are very small. Like, think about this. When Apple started this iPhone, there was a really short time period that you can actually invest in Apple and make a lot of money out of this iPhone moment. And it's always been software winning most of the market shares in terms of returns and hardware, just a small bump from time to time. So I think we missed the chance already. We got to come up with a different type of business model.
A little bit of a side note here. So I've been reading a couple of these articles, trying to get caught up on this Gemma thing, and a lot of it comes down to also benchmarking against like DeepSeek, Kimi, these other kinds of open source models. Interestingly enough, where the fuck is Meta? They're not even like in the like they're not even in the conversation with all the hundreds of billions of dollars that they're putting into work. Like it's not mentioned in like any story that I can see that's covering
I
this.
agree. We
Yeah.
don't know where Llama is.
But someone actually told me yesterday, I don't know if this is true. They told me what one of the most globally used AI was actually the search bar in WhatsApp, where you can say ask AI. Someone
Mm,
was telling me that that's actually one of the most used AI apps out there because so many people are on WhatsApp, and I guess
right.
the typical
Yeah.
person still typing into that search bar for some
But what
reason.
are they querying? I think it's got to be like, where is that thread between me and Kevin and Ian from like 5 months ago?
What's the weather
Right?
today? Yeah,
Yeah.
I imagine it's probably not the most tech savvy, but most of the world is not very tech savvy, right? Like, you and I, the three of us, we're in the heart of Silicon Valley trying the latest models and stuff. But like most of the world is just like, where do I order pizza? You know?
Yeah. But you still use Microsoft, so I wouldn't put yourself like put you in but you're close. But like, I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page on this. So still using Microsoft, somebody in this room. So
Yeah. We love making fun of Kevin as well.
I
All
love
right.
my Microsoft, man. They're stable and secure.
Well, Ian, that's the difference between him and us. Is just like he's actually building a scaled VC fund that's going to be, like a scaled enterprise, and we're just hacking in our garage or in our condo right now. So,
Mhm.
Uh,
um, let's go to a different story here, which is a surprising leak, right? So the Claude Mythos source code, which is like their next generation step function upgrade of Claude code source code, got leaked, and this has been a really weird story because apparently there's some sort of human error in terms of like something got mishandled by a human being, not the AI themselves, that allowed this leak to happen. It of course got like replicated in a gazillion GitHub accounts. They're trying to do their best to cover up the damage by put out DMCA takedown notices and cease and desist. But I'm like, there's no point in doing that. It's out there. So actually, I want to send this to you, Ian, because I think you may have studied this one more closely. Were
Yeah.
there reactions that you had in terms of what was released
So
and
I think
what the
there,
Anthropic?
yes, two different things. One is Mythos is leaked, but we talked about this last week, and Kevin said it's a planned leak. But today, this story is about the cloud code leaked. The source code of cloud code is leaked, so everybody knows how cloud code is made. And there were some crazy Koreans who actually put that copy paste into a GitHub, and they're getting a lot of stars on GitHub, and people are claiming that's a life-changing experience for them. Um, but I think what this means to me is you can actually build a cloud code and how it works if you have a good AI model. So connect this to Gemma or whatever open source model that you have. So as long as you have a good enough an AI model and you know how Anthropic is building their software and how they control their AI to respond to the customers, then we're getting there to some extent. That's why I put this news together. But that just excites me there. It's just not that much of an influence unless you actually have a Anthropics or Opus model that you can put this code in and start using it. But still interesting way of, Anthropics their own software build.
I mean, Kevin, do you think that a leak like this has any material impact on how Anthropic is going to be valued, or investor kind of
yeah,
risk as well?
that's a good question. I think short answer is not really, because at some point, the business of Anthropic or OpenAI or ChatGPT is not actually just about like obviously the model itself is valuable and someone can create like a clone of either of these models. but it's also the brand, the recognition, everything that someone signs up for a subscription for, whether it's enterprise or consumer, right? So, just because some random Joe Schmo out there starts Anthropic 2.0, uses the same source code and creates like, the same product, doesn't mean that everyone's going to go flock and buy their product, right? So I think, at this point, Anthropic, OpenAI, they've already created such a strong moat for themselves in terms of branding, recognition, reputation, that it's probably not going to have a significant impact. I do think some customers are probably going to ask, like, hey, did we do cyber due diligence on your company? And
Mm.
what are your best practices regarding code leaks? Because that's probably something that most of these large growth funds should have done, pretty intense due diligence on, and commissioned,
Right.
a report on. But now they're probably questioning, like, did we do that diligence properly? Because this kind of stuff shouldn't be happening.
I don't think they did their diligence properly. I mean, this is like a rocket ship business. It's 380 billion in valuation. It like what OpenAI got marked at 852 or something yesterday or this week. I mean, there's headroom. There's perceivable headroom, theoretical headroom here. But you know what? As you're sort of sharing your comments, Kevin, I was reminded of one of my favorite movies of all time, which is Back to the Future, right?
Yeah.
So Doc Brown, one of the protagonists, always says to Marty, "You're not thinking fourth dimensionally, right?" Which is time. And I think that is sort of almost like what I'm inferring out of your comment, which is it kind of sucks that this got leaked, and it's really embarrassing that it got leaked and can be replicable. But Anthropic is actually more about like over time, how are you actually evolving this business? Because taking a snapshot of like the company now does not actually really matter like 5 months from now, I think, when like they've evolved as a great team into like a new kind of model that they're releasing or something else. So this already feels like yeah, I guess I'm less concerned about snapshots in time, but this is embarrassing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, it doesn't really matter. Unless you have Opus, you can't use this.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have a good model to use this software around it. So,
All right. Well, it looks like it wasn't a planned leak. It was actually an accidental leak. So let's talk about a different kind of story where, leaks would be life or death. If this were to happen, this is a bad segue. It's the Artemis II mission. Very, very different.
that
So,
was really bad, Gary.
yeah, good luck and God
And
bless to
you
these
know what
astronauts.
happened 50 years ago, 60 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. So like the timing of this story is interesting, right? One is like it's neat that we're thinking about moon missions again in NASA. I just actually watched that movie Hidden Figures about like the first like astronauts with my daughter and son actually this week. So this was very top of mind. And then, I'm like distracted by like AI, like the government shutdown, wars in the Middle East. And then there's like this story that it's kind of like coming under the radar here. Um, Actually, I'll start with you, Kevin. So, like, when you think about like moon missions, you know, uh, why are we taking this stuff more seriously? Do you have any best guesses as to like what's the purpose of this? And does this tie to some of the AI stuff? Like, do we need to do moon missions for AI data centers and solar power or whatever?
Well, and Kevin made money out of this through XAI too. So,
Space.
Ooh,
Yeah, yeah. We
smart.
love space. Also, on a separate topic, have you guys seen Project Hail Mary?
no, no,
No, is
yeah.
it any good?
How's it?
Yeah, it's very good. I read the book. I mean, it's written by, I think, the same guy who wrote The Martian.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so like I actually really like The Martian. I think I might like that one more than this movie, but it's something that a lot of the VCs have been booking out. I know of two large VC firms that have basically booked out a whole theater for their firm to watch this Project Hail Mary. So maybe it's a very VC phenomenon, but it's pretty good. It's like a space-oriented fictional movie. You guys should check it out if you haven't. I think this is just Donald Trump wanting to be, we say we went to space and kind of pump his fist. That's my. I feel like that's kind of my read of why we did this mission. But it's pretty cool. I mean, it's been a long time since we've been to the moon, and I think maybe there's some level of like space race. We got to beat, all the other other access powers to do this. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, Ian, any takes? It's been apparently 50 years since we put astronauts as Americans this close to the moon.
Yeah.
Was this like a soft power move as well? What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I think this has been planned for a long time,
Absolutely.
and SpaceX is involved in this too. So I think it's, you know, I don't know, 20, it's been over 10 years that they planned for this. Um, I was always curious, like we were able to do this 50 years ago. Why aren't we doing this again? But because it's just not worth the time and everything. But I think, we're getting into really the space era now. I don't believe in data centers in the near term, but at the same time, I'm a big believer of the space-based internet. Like we got to use Starlink more. I'm actually thinking about signing up for it. So I think we are expecting to see some iPhone moment for space industry once you have Starship up and running, because the cost of sending a kilogram of package to the moon or to the space is 1/100th of what used to cost like 20 years ago. It used to cost like $10,000. We're expecting that go down to $100, and that changed all the economics. The unit economics start to make sense. Once the barriers are lowered, there's going to be flooding, startups and all these new business ideas coming in. So I'm excited for this, and Artemis is a symbol that we're getting back to the space.
Did you see this also like some diversity element of this?
Yeah,
It said, well, I'm just reading the Wikipedia article. It says Glover became the first person of color, Koch the first woman, Wiseman the oldest person, and Hansen the first Canadian and non-US citizen to travel beyond low Earth orbit.
and
So
the
it's
first
like,
female too.
what was that?
There's a first female astronaut.
Yeah, yeah, first woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like they chose four of the most diverse people to go on this mission, which is very un-Trump like, I suppose, as well.
What a woke mission are these astronauts that are currently doing this brave work.
I think the timeline for this was 2019. So this was supposed to be done in 2019 and delayed by 7 years.
You're right. The Wikipedia article says that they talked about the mission reviewed in 2011. The launch date was placed somewhere between 2019 and 2021, and then delayed to 2023. And now we're in 2026.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Well,
But it's so fun to watch, like
Mm.
actually manned mission to outer space, not just a lower orbit. So,
you know, I think we need stories like this to get more traction because, like, when I look at my own kids and ask them, like, what do you want to grow and what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, shamefully, they're just like, oh, I'd love to be like a YouTuber or something like that. I'm like, we're not letting them watch that much YouTube, but they're so influenced by those kinds of people still. And so, what I really do admire about maybe like kids in the 1960s, although a different kind of set of problems growing up in America in the 1960s was like there was I think an aspirational kind of view of like, whoa, what these astronauts or what NASA is doing is like super cool. Maybe I should like get into science and like be involved in this kind of like space race kind of thing. And missions like this, I think, if you can get more attention as a society, like hopefully it can reset like the respect, I think, towards like STEM people and those who are kind of doing crazy shit like this. And it seems like it's severely lacking these kinds of stories these days. So I was happy that we could have this little happy story in this podcast today too. But it can't all be happy because we like to end the three commas podcast by at least like dishing a little bit at the end, right? And we got to talk about this last story. This one came right. This came out right around the recording of our last podcast, and we're going to talk about the Perplexity CEO. So, I didn't listen to the All In podcast. I never do, where he said this, but apparently, they're talking about AIs leading to job displacement, layoffs, and I'm going to quote the CEO, Srinivas. He's saying that the reality is that most people don't enjoy their jobs. There's suddenly a new possibility, a new opportunity to go use these tools. I think AI, learn them, and start your own mini business, even if there's temporary job displacement to deal with. That sort of glorious future is what we should be looking forward to. I don't know what the context was before and after, but I'm going to take this quote at face value and just judge it as like, why the hell would you say something like this? This seems like so low empathy. Of course, losing your job in the near term is chaotic and bad for your health and really worrisome. And I'm not sure everyone wants to start their own mini business if you've been like a product manager at Oracle for 26 years. So I got a real allergic reaction when I saw this. It's like, dude, that's kind of a fucking stupid statement to say. I don't know if you guys had a different take though when you heard this.
100%. It just feels like a very kind of entitled, like disconnected from reality statement of like, I'm a whatever. I don't know if he's a billionaire. He probably is a billionaire at this point. Like, I'm comfortable. People should be fine with losing their job. Like, most people don't have the money. Like, they need to pay their bills and they have to live their life. And they're. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck that are working at tech companies.
I think
You
a
know,
lot are.
yeah. Well, yeah, living costs are expensive in the Bay Area, so it's not like, you're rolling in the dough. So it just feels like a very tone deaf thing to say.
Yeah. Ian, any takes on this?
It's just Arabin being Arabin. We all knew about this guy, so.
Yeah. Um, I do think I'll give him some credit on one thing, which is like, I think if I were to really squint my eyes hard on that statement and try to give a much more magnanimous take on this, it's just like, I think we have to recognize a reality also that's inferred, which is this AI job displacement thing, we're just getting started. I mean, this week, Oracle announced the largest tech layoff in history. I believe it was 30,000 people. And I don't think we're going to be astounded by numbers like that in terms of large enterprise layoffs in the future. I think that's really coming. So creative destruction is a hell of a thing. I remember like learning about this in high school economics is like when sometimes there's a new technology that's introduced or some sort of like shape shift in like society, like a lot of jobs and industries go away and then new ones get created in its wake. And we're right in the middle of that explosion cycle, right? Where like a ton of displacement is going to take place. So the three of us are entrepreneurs, right? Like we're kind of okay with like this idea of uncertainty and like building for our own and so forth. But I do think that is almost like the near term path in the next 5 to 10 years is people may have to accept that building your own kind of hustles in the near term or reskilling yourself super rapidly is just going to be the reality. And those who embrace that kind of risk, I think will find this to be really fun. Those who are carrying, $15,000 mortgages on their $4 million house and sending their kids to private school in the Bay Area, like, going back to the paycheck to paycheck thing, I think there are households that are making like 600, 800,000 a year in the Bay Area where lifestyle inflation has really caught up to them, as well as just like the entire environment here being expensive, where, this is going to be catastrophic when they are missing a couple months of work. So I don't know if there's any reaction to that dire comment, but I think this is like a reality that he is trying to address in a poorly worded way.
I agree. Yeah, but another tone deaf comment from us is it's also a very exciting moment for us too, because everything's changing. The world order is changing. The technology is changing. The foundation is dismantling. I think this is where new exciting stuff will start. And I'm not really worried about this. Like, people will find jobs. There's going to be more work that needs more people. There's going to be, again, displacement. You got to do something else, and we might have to learn something else. But still, I think the word, I mean, it's always been the case that when we have the first machines or factories, people thought, hey, we might not be able to get a job, but we need more people than ever with the factories and all these kind of new technologies. So I think it's going to be same for AI. You just need to find the right way to survive here. But I don't think it's gonna be a dystopian future. I'm more, optimistic about this and excited about what's coming for the entire human species.
I think you represent both of our views too, with Kevin and myself too. But Kevin, I want to give you the last word on this one. So, like, let's say that I'm a product manager at a decent tech company here in the Bay Area, and I can see these headwinds coming. Like, what's the advice are you sharing for me personally to help me navigate? I think this massive trend of layoffs and reskilling and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's really hard for me to say. Like, I think it's kind of like thinking about what's going to happen in the future, and how do we adjust as a society to this as well, right? Like, I think there's a lot of big questions that even like our government needs to maybe help figure out. Um, I don't know. Like, I've always been of the mind that, like, maybe this is getting off into a tangent too. Like, UBI is going to be a thing.
Yes,
Um,
universal basic income.
yeah, universal basic income, because like at some point there are going to be a ton of jobs, and we're not even talking about robotics, right? Like, I think robotics is going to automate. I mean, maybe it'll take a longer time, but I wouldn't be surprised in the next 5, 10, 15 years. There will be, I think, a good amount of like pretty competent robotics that will automate a lot of other manual tasks that a lot of people do today, and workers do today. So I don't know. I think UBI has to be part of that conversation. Uh, Go ahead, Ian.
I don't know, like if we don't have UBI now, we're never gonna have UBI. You know what I mean? Human beings have enough wealth. We can distribute it to everybody and everybody can live better than now, but it's not happening because, that's how Capitalism works. I think I get the point why UBIs has been a thing in political scene and all that, but the thing is, we're looking into a current world with a new technology. Then UBI makes sense. But then when we have a new technology, the world will change. Then
Mhm.
we're going to need a better technology to achieve UBI forever. So it's something that you can never catch. The world is going to change, will change with AI. In current world, AI is going to solve everything. The productivity will go up. We're going to have surplus. So everybody gets free cash or free money or bread. But I think once we get into next level, it's also lifestyle inflation thing. Once we get to next level with this current technology, I don't know, like we're still gonna have to work.
Mhm.
Yeah. Maybe the advice as I'm starting listening to you guys for that fictional product manager with high household income that feels nervous about AI taking away their job is, I would say two things. Just like what we say to our founders in an environment like this, save your money, make sure you build some runway just in case it happens. And second would be do as much as you can to play with AI. I mean, like once you can get familiar, even with like being pretty good with like cowork and things like this. Like I just got my wife, who is an executive coach on cowork. Finally, she's like playing with it, and she this week have it's so satisfying to see that expression on the faces of people that you really love when they like realize like what the fuck was this thing that I've been sleeping on this whole time. She's like her mind is blown, and she's just like constantly like now research and all stuff. Like she finally gets it, right? And I'm long on her because I think in her industry, like no one is really playing with AI, and she's got a real big head start here. So it's still early. Save money and play with AI, and then join us on being brainwashed on the AI side, like the three of us here on the Three Commas podcast. uh, Guys, I think we've expended all of our stories here. Um, since Ian, you're the one that came up with the Three Commas name.
Everyone, I
We're
came up
gonna
with names and
This is your AI, okay? This is like the expression of Ian here. Do you want to attempt some sort of sign off? I don't know if we can actually work in the Three Commas name very cleanly now when we sign things off.
uh, you're putting me on the spot. I came up with the name. You guys should figure it out, right?
God.
Flavor. Come on, it's unfair.
Ian's the CEO. We're just the underlings. Kevin, do you have any ideas how we should sign off these podcasts now that we're called Three Commas?
I mean, we could still sign it off as saying this is not a, like we should have a disclaimer, shouldn't we?
Okay, okay.
It's a disclaimer, as anyways, you know.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a standard disclaimer that we should always say,
Yeah,
even if we
that's
don't
fair.
name the podcast. Um, I don't know. We could sign it off with that. I was thinking maybe we could also sign it off with like what is like a company like either a company we hope becomes a unicorn or is already a unicorn, um, or I don't know. One person can choose like a unicorn company from the past.
I think that's also cool. Or
Well,
we can just talk about something positive, one
how
thing.
about we? You know what? I heard acquisition. My first like acquired podcast on
Hmm.
F1. I was like, wow, I really have got to listen to more podcasts. They're really good. I like how they end with like that quintessence thing, which it's a weird term, but basically they talk about like what's something in your own life that's not related to anything we talked about today that you're excited about,
I
right?
think that's really good.
Yeah, and like you can, it could be a personal example. So I'll start, okay, just to set the tone. We're gonna copy you acquired, okay, for this Three Commas podcast rebrand, which is what I'm excited about is next week I'm going to Disneyland. It's going to be a family trip. My kids have their spring break. So I generally hate Disneyland. I hate the fact that I'm going to be losing probably $1,000 a day on this ridiculous park. But these are anchor memories with my young children, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. So good luck to me and my wife on the 6.5 hour drive back and down and back. But I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. Kevin or Ian, do you want to go next?
Wow, putting us on the spot now.
We got it.
I'm
Yeah, yeah.
excited.
Like,
I
Ian.
started running every morning, and posting it on Instagram, and I just enjoy it more and more. I went to Koi Tower yesterday. It took an hour, but it was fun. I don't know. It just running it in the morning for 30 minutes changes your life. So
Mm.
I'm just excited to wake up tomorrow. I actually went to running at 6:30 today because I have a 7:30 meeting with you guys. So it's just fun. I'm excited for tomorrow morning.
I love
Nice, I
that.
like it. I'm actually, I don't want to use the same one that Ian's using, but I'm thinking about signing up for a half marathon because I haven't run in a long time and I need something to motivate myself to get back into
Are you
shape.
gonna go to the San Francisco Marathon?
I might do that. I need something a little bit sooner though because I'm trying to get in more shape before the Italy wedding. And so there's one in San Jose, I think that's in May. So I'll probably do it early. But I could do the SF is in August. Is that right?
Yeah, August or July.
Yeah, I could
I'm
do that
thinking
one
of
too.
going there too.
Yeah, yeah, we should
So
do
Amazing.
it.
you're more
Well,
excited about your running than your wedding in Italy.
Yeah.
don't,
Well,
we are recording
they're
this.
related. They're related entities. It's correlated. But I'm also
Well,
excited about Ian's tennis
Yeah, he's coming.
Korean tennis
He
gathering.
joined our Korean Kakao group,
oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
yeah. I'm
and he wrote
officially
it in Chinese. So
yeah. I'm officially Korean. There's an Indian guy in there too who speaks Korean.
he's perfect. He speaks perfect Korean,
What?
Not like me.
literally.
Fake,
Like
a fake Korean.
you gotta learn. Come on,
Yeah.
your mother-in-law is gonna love it.
Well, Kevin, if you run out of time before that wedding, there's this company called Medv where you can
Nah.
get some GLP-1s.
Right.
Maybe you'll
Let me
get
go buy
scammed,
some.
but yeah, but you can
Contribute to the
basically buy them.
billion-dollar revenues.
Exactly. Guys, thank you so much. Lovely to do this every morning with you. The Three Commas right here, right? So I'll see you next week.
See you
All
guys.
right,
Peace out.
peace out.